The rain began the same night they buried Amaka, heavy, violent, as though the sky itself refused to let her go. The villagers of Odu watched silently as mud covered the wooden coffin. Women cried softly beneath black wrappers, while men stood beneath palm leaves, shielding themselves from the storm. Inside the coffin lay the body of Chiamaka, beautiful, young, dead during childbirth, or so everyone believed. Her husband, Obina, stood at the front of the grave with empty eyes. His white mourning cloth clung to his wet skin, while thunder shook the earth around them. Beside him stood his mother, Mama Nkem, crying loudly, too loudly. Chiamaka, she screamed dramatically. Why did you leave my son alone? The villagers lowered their heads in pity. Nobody noticed the way Obina avoided looking at the coffin. Nobody noticed his shaking hands. Nobody noticed the fear hiding behind his grief. The burial ended before sunset. By nightfall, whispers had already begun spreading across Odo village. The poor girl suffered too much. She should never have married into that family. Something was wrong in that house. But no one dared say more, not openly. 3 months later, music filled Obina's compound once again. Drums, palm wine, dancing, laughter. The entire village gathered to celebrate his new marriage. Many were shocked by how quickly he moved on, but Mama Nkem defended him proudly. A man cannot sleep alone forever, she said loudly. Life must continue. The new bride's name was Ezine, young, light-skinned, soft-spoken, and heavily pregnant. The villagers whispered among themselves when they noticed the size of her stomach. 3 months? That belly looks older than 3 months. But whenever anyone questioned it, Mama Nkem silenced them immediately. What matters is that my son finally has an heir. Obina smiled proudly beside Ezine throughout the celebration, but deep inside, fear continued growing, because every night since Amaka's burial, he had been hearing strange sounds outside his window, soft footsteps, slow scratching against the walls, and sometimes a woman crying. At first he blamed guilt, then he blamed nightmares, until the night he heard a voice. Obina. His blood froze. The lantern beside his bed flickered wildly. Again, Obina. He rushed outside with a machete. Nothing, only darkness and rain. The next morning, he told nobody, but from that day forward, he stopped sleeping properly. His eyes grew darker, his body thinner. Even Ezine noticed. You look frightened all the time, she whispered one evening. Obina forced a smile. I'm fine, but he was lying, because he remembered something nobody else knew. The night Amaka died, she was still breathing when Mama Nkem ordered her buried. The memory haunted him endlessly. Amaka had suffered terrible labor pains for 2 days. The child refused to come out. Blood covered the floor. The village midwife begged them to take her to the city hospital, but Mama Nkem refused. It is a waste of money, she snapped. Women have been giving birth in villages for generations. By the second night, Amaka became weak, barely conscious. Then suddenly, she stopped moving. Mama Nkem touched her neck. She's dead. The baby inside her had also gone silent. Obina felt relief before sadness. Relief, because secretly, he had already fallen in love with Ezine months earlier. Amaka had become a burden, always sick, always tired, always questioning him. That same night, they buried her quickly before sunrise. No doctor, no confirmation, nothing. And now, 3 months later, the dead woman's voice haunted his nights. One evening, a traveler arrived in Odu village, an old man carrying carved walking sticks. He stopped at the market square asking strange questions. Who buried the woman alive here? The market women laughed nervously. What kind of question is that? The old man shook his head slowly. The spirits are restless in this village. By sunset, the story spread everywhere. Children repeated it playfully. Adults pretended not to care, but Obina heard, and fear swallowed him whole. That same night, the knocking returned, this time louder. Bang, bang, bang. Obina jumped awake. Ezine sat up beside him, trembling. Who is that? The knocking continued. Then came the voice, soft, weak. Open the door, Ezine screamed. Obina grabbed the lantern shakily and walked toward the entrance. His legs barely worked. The knocking stopped. Slowly, he opened the door. Nobody stood there, only muddy footprints leading away from the compound, bare female footprints. Ezine began crying immediately. We need a pastor, but Mama Nkem dismissed everything angrily the next morning. Foolishness. Somebody is trying to scare us. Still, even she looked frightened. Days passed. Then came the night everything changed. The wedding celebration for Ezina's pregnancy was held beneath giant lanterns across the compound. Drums echoed loudly through Odu village. Women danced. Men drank heavily. Mama and Kim smiled proudly before the guests. My son's lineage will finally continue. Suddenly, the drums stopped. The dancers froze because someone stood at the compound entrance. A woman, covered in mud, carrying a child wrapped against her chest. The entire village fell silent. The lantern light revealed her face slowly, and screams exploded everywhere. Amaka! Women fell backward in terror. Men stumbled away from their seats. Mama Nkam nearly fainted. Obina stood frozen like stone, because standing before them, alive, was the woman they buried 3 months ago. Amaka walked slowly into the compound. Her face looked thinner, hollow, but alive, very alive. The baby in her arms began crying softly. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Obina's lips trembled violently. No. Amaka stopped directly in front of him. Rain began falling softly from the sky. You buried me alive, she whispered. The villagers gasped loudly. Mama Nkam shook uncontrollably. Amaka slowly looked around the compound. At first I thought I was dead. Tears filled her eyes. I woke up inside darkness. Women covered their mouths in horror. I could not breathe. I could not move. Obina staggered backward. The coffin. Amaka nodded slowly. I screamed until my throat bled. Ezine burst into tears instantly. The baby in Amaka's arms cried louder. Then grave robbers digging nearby heard me. The villagers murmured fearfully. They pulled me out before morning. Mama Nkam collapsed onto the ground, screaming prayers. Amaka looked down at her coldly. You said I was dead because taking me to the hospital cost too much. The old woman cried harder. Obina finally found his voice. Amaka, I slap. The sound echoed across the compound. Amaka's hand shook after striking him. You buried your wife alive. Dead silence swallowed the village. Then suddenly, one of the grave robbers stepped forward from the crowd. An old, scarred man. She speaks truth, he announced loudly. We found her buried alive beside the old forest road. Panic exploded through the compound. Villagers shouted angrily. Women cursed Obina openly. You monster. You wanted her gone. Even Ezine stared at him with horror. Obina dropped to his knees. I was afraid, but nobody listened anymore. Amaka held her child tighter. For 3 months, strangers cared for me, while my husband celebrated another woman. Ezine slowly touched her pregnant stomach. Realization dawned across her face, because now she understood something terrible. If Obina could bury one wife alive, what would stop him from destroying another? Slowly, she stepped away from him. Obina noticed. Ezine, but she shook her head immediately. Fear filled her eyes. Mama Nkam crawled toward Amaka, crying desperately. Forgive us. Amaka stared at her for a long moment, then quietly said, When I begged for help during labor, her voice cracked, you told me women survive pain every day. The old woman broke down completely. Amaka turned toward the villagers. I did not return for revenge. Everyone watched silently. I returned because my son deserves the truth. She slowly lifted the crying baby higher. This child belongs to a woman you buried before she died. Nobody spoke. Even the rain seemed silent now. Finally, the village chief stepped forward, and for the first time in Odu's history, Obina and his mother were publicly arrested before the entire village. Shame swallowed their family instantly. Ezine left the compound before sunrise. Nobody stopped her. As for Amaka, the villagers who once pitied her now feared her story. Some called her a ghost, others called her a miracle, but Amaka no longer cared what anyone called her, because she had already survived the grave. Months later, she left Odu village quietly with her child, far away from the place that tried to bury her alive. And long after she was gone, whenever heavy rain fell across Odu at night, villagers still remembered the dead bride who returned home carrying her child. Thank you for watching this story till the end. If you enjoyed it,